I want to get your take on the Clippers because that was an ugly ending for them against Denver. I've been trying to erase my column after Game 3 where I said the Clippers had all the pieces finally together to be a championship team from the internet. A little bit difficult to scrub it, but it has not gone well for them since then. Getting absolutely tattooed in Denver in a Game 7, embarrassed in an elimination game. And I would argue, Rachel, that this season ending the way it did was worse than all the others. Because all the others, you could at least point to something like Kawhi got hurt. What are we going to do? Paul George got hurt. What are we going to do? This year, they had Kawhi healthy at the end, James Harden healthy at the end, Zubac playing his best basketball, Norman Powell playing his best basketball, and they still get beat in the first round. Now they face an offseason where Kawhi's still under contract, but he's another year older. James Harden can opt out of his contract, put some pressure on them to re-sign him for a longer-term deal, but they don't have a lot of flexibility here. They don't have a lot of moves to make. What do you do if you're Lawrence Frank and that Clippers front office? How do you get this team to the next level?
I want to answer that in two ways.
Okay.
The first way is thank you in our last two discussions for proving my point about Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Bucks, because the Steph Currys of the world are going to get hurt, because the Clippers of the world are going to have a bad matchup in the first round, which, by the way, I think they would not be a first-round exit if they've been playing almost any other team in the West, not the Thunder, but, you know.
Yeah.
I think that they would have advanced to the second round, and we'd be having a different conversation. There are so many ways, the Cleveland Cavaliers, where you have a great setup and something goes wrong. You cannot count on the future when you have something good in your pocket. Do not give it away without serious consideration. Okay, number 2.
Okay.
Thank you.
Brings it full circle.
Right.
So yeah.
I appreciate you letting me get that in. That was kind of you. Look, I think the James Harden price tag is going to be a big decision maker. You know, does he opt out? How much money does he want? What kind of flexibility does that or doesn't that give them? They obviously, I don't want to say they found something in Zubac, because, by the way, he's been good for them, if not this great, but good for them since the moment the Lakers inexplicably gave him away for peanuts to the Clippers. I just don't know what else you do with this team. And the coaching is top-notch. The defense was exceptional. I don't know if you just have to throw up your hands and say, this is kind of the same as when someone has an injury, and say, we maxed out more than anyone thought we would with this roster, and we ran into an opponent where we ended up playing Game 7 at altitude on their floor, and our older guys ran out of gas. Like, I just don't know what else you can kind of do at that point. And you're right, there's no magic bullet for them to, like, fix it all this summer.
As a small business owner, you don't have the luxury of clocking out early. Your business is on your mind 24/7. So when you're hiring, you need a partner that grinds just as hard as you do. That hiring partner is LinkedIn Jobs. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates that you can manage all in one place. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the people with deep candidate insights. Either post your job for free or pay to promote. Promoted jobs get 3 times more qualified applicants. Get qualified candidates. At the end of the day, the most important thing to your small business is the quality of candidates, and with LinkedIn, you can feel confident that you're getting the best. Based on LinkedIn data, 72% of small businesses using LinkedIn say that LinkedIn helps them find high-quality candidates. You can let your network know you're hiring. You can even add a hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture and get 2 times more qualified candidates. Find out why more than 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring today. Find your next great hire on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/openfloor. That's linkedin.com/openfloor to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. If James Harden opts out of his contract, I would think long and hard about even bringing him back.
Sure, absolutely.
I mean, like Harden, we both respect his game. He is what he is at this point as a player. Like, you've been in the league, 12, 15 years, whatever number of years he's been in, and you are a consistently bad playoff performer. I mean, the numbers, I'll give you a chance to counter that, but the numbers are what they are. 26 playoff games with more turnovers than field goals.
Out of how many?
A lot, a ton. 33 playoff games.
Out of how many?
With 3 or less field goals. 54 playoff games with 4 or less field goals. I'm parroting our friend Nick Wright over at Fox Sports, who had a pretty good showcase graphic there about how Harden and his numbers compared to some of the peers. And these are his peers. Harden is one of the great players of this generation, how he's compared to them. He has not delivered. If you want something more recent and more specific, his last 2 Game 7s, Rachel, against Boston 2 years ago with Philadelphia and against Denver. His numbers, 5 of 19 from the floor and 2 of 19 from three-point range. His last 2 elimination games, when stars become stars, when stars make their bones, that's where legacy is made. He has come up short.
Yeah, he's old now.
But he's been doing it a lot, though, over the course of his career.
I just looked it up.
Okay.
James Harden has played 173 playoff games.
Okay.
I am not in any way defending James Harden as the greatest playoff player on earth. He is not. However, and this was with the Chris Paul conversation too, it's a little bit cheating the argument when you count up totals for a guy who has played. This is a guy who's gotten his teams to the playoffs in all but 1 season of his, at this point, I think it's a 15-year career.
Yes.
And who's therefore played 173 playoff games. So when you throw around, he's got 30 of these games, whatever, it's not a huge part of the total. It's more than you'd want. And it's hey, this tells me he is not going to be the number 1A guy on your team to get you to a title. And we saw that in Houston, where he was having MVP seasons, but couldn't get it done in the playoffs.
But, does this series not show you he might not even be good enough to be number 2?
At this age?
Kawhi
What is
deserves
he,
criticism
35?
too. 35, be 36 next year.
Okay.
Kawhi deserves criticism in this end too. Like, he did not play well in this series, at least down the stretch.
I think we're spoiled. Look, LeBron James, who obviously is playing at 40 plus now, we all recognize he's not going to be your number 1 player. And in fact, depending on who else they bring in, he might not be the number 2 player on the Lakers next year. These guys are getting older. And we have in some ways been spoiled by the fact that, the previous generation didn't play this long. It was crazy when Chris Paul was doing contracts where he would end up being 36, 38,
that
whatever
over 38
it was.
Rule came in.
Right, but he foresaw, as the president of the Players Association, when he wrote that into the CBA, I'm still going to be playing then. And he played all 82 this year. LeBron James is still getting it done on an all-NBA team at an all-NBA level at 40 plus. We are spoiled that James Harden at 35 and Steph Curry at 37 are still at the level they're at. We can't be surprised, though, when they cannot deliver the way they did at 25 or 30. And I just think that's a reality. And I agree with you that the Clippers have to decide if he opts out, and he might not for this very reason. There's other teams around the league who might be like, he's 36. He's going to be 36.
There was no market for him last summer, though. Like, the Clippers bid against themselves to give him that deal.
Well, I think the market's changed. They
you
got
think
him.
It's plussed up? You think it's better now for him?
I do actually. I think.
Where are we looking now? We're
look. As I just said, he might not opt out because it might not be there. I'm not saying he's going to have his pick this summer. I do think that he's a rehabilitated player from the guy who left Philadelphia. And I think his stock is higher. And what he's been able to do for the Clippers has been impressive. I agree with you, though. If he opts out, if he does find an opportunity somewhere else, then the Clippers have to seriously think about getting younger, certainly, and how they manage the future. And it's a very smart front office.
Yeah.
So I trust
They made
them.
the right moves. Like, when Paul George left and not giving Paul George that money was the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do.
Getting Derek Jones, getting Chris Dunn, getting the guys that they got made sense. Getting Nick Batum made sense. And maybe you can chalk it up to, well, they had a bad first-round matchup. If they come back next year, if Kawhi is healthy, which, again, is asking for a lot. But, look, they were on a 58-win pace in the games that he played. So you can say we'll be better off if we bring all these guys back. But the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And I'm not going to sit there and say I'm sure Kawhi Leonard will be healthy for 65-plus games next year. I can't say James Harden at age 36 is still going to be the same player in the regular season. Norm Powell's looking for more money. He's extension eligible this summer. He's coming off an all-star caliber year. What do you pay Norm Powell, who's had some durability issues in recent years? They're between a rock and a hard place right now, where I think even if they run it back with the same guys, what was already a very narrow championship path has become almost wafer thin, in my opinion. Like, they're just very, very, that's very difficult to see a pathway that this group can contend for anything.
So what would you do?
I'd hope that Harden takes a lighter deal, 2 years, $40 million, and give yourself some financial wiggle room to do some things and count on the front office, led by Lawrence Frank, to maybe tweak it and add one other piece. They could probably use another 3-and-D guy to help with some of these wing players they've struggled with. But I go back to the Harden thing. Like, I don't think Harden can be the number 2 on a championship team anymore. I thought he could have done that a few years ago. And certainly he was a number 1 for a long time. But as I don't think he'd be a number 2. I think whether it's Powell, what's he, 32? I don't think he's going to send that much more. But can
who's
Powell
going to step in and be the number 2? Are you getting a number 2 even if Harden takes less money?
I don't know. Again, it's a rock and a hard place that they're in right there. They've cast their lot with this group. They've made their deals. They've done a fantastic job, both externally in bringing guys in and internally at developing them. Zubac.
Again,
to me,
Ty Lue, not my coach of the year, but on my coach of the year ballot.
Elite guy. They've done a great job. I don't see how I don't see the pathway here. I don't see how they get this Kawhi Leonard-led group to a championship level.
Look, they had a plan when they went out and got Kawhi. They made a trade that even at the time, because Shea already had a reputation around the league.
It was growing, yeah. He had a great rookie year.
This is a guy who's earmarked to be good, right? Even at the time, we were all like, we'll see if this is worthwhile. And yes, it's a 2-for-1. You get Kawhi, therefore you get Paul George. That's why you made the trade. You're not really trading for Paul George. You're trading for both of those guys, weirdly. But that's the decision they made. And ever since, they have had to deal with ever-changing circumstances. Kawhi not being healthy in almost any of the games. He hasn't been healthy since 2020 for the playoffs. This was the first time he ended the playoffs on the floor, right? So that handicap alone, because of that, chemistry issues, when Paul not being able to play to the potential you hoped he would be able to play at, then he turns and walks away, and you're left with, at the beginning of the season, what did we all think the Clippers were going to do? Certainly a lot of people didn't think they were going to make the playoffs. I think
had to fight at the very end to stay out of the play-in tournament.
I think this front office has made lemonade out of lemons for years. I expect them to keep doing so. I'm just not sure that that's going to yield a championship. You might have to wait out some of these contracts, play as well as you can, and sort of start to attract guys as you get more money available.
Tough for Steve Ballmer, who's all in.
Steve Ballmer is going to be just fine.
He's going to be just fine.
Although I did like the move. What did you think of the move of him bringing all those wall people?
That was cool.
I mean, that was so cool.
That was cool. It's nice when you have bleep you money, though.
I get it. That's what I said.
Do that.
So Steve Ballmer's going to be just fine.
Just fine.
But how cool, just for the fan experience, it is so rare we see a team owner do anything for fans.
Awesome. Yeah.
In Dallas, they're raising ticket prices again.
Oh, that's a conversation for another day.
Just saying. I thought that was awesome.
Steve Ballmer, one of the best owners in the NBA, built the best arena in the NBA. Still might be a long way away from winning a championship, though, in the NBA.